Okay, quick update. My compadre was going to join us today, and he is holding to a promise that he made to help someone work on their house. His own words, not mine. His dumbass promised to do something, and the God's honest truth is I admire him for taking care of family and friends. So hopefully, maybe next weekend we can finish that podcast about, what was it, like 5 minutes till death or something like that. The windows are open. The noise is starting to pick up. I'm hearing a lot of fire trucks and stuff. I looked on my scanner feed, and it looks like there's a house or the town's burning out of control. I don't know. I don't smell smoke yet, so I'm not worried yet. But today we're going to be working on, and this is going to sound stupid, okay? But this is habits for when everything goes sideways and you prefer it not to, or we're going to say bend over and take it, or go out fighting on your feet. I talk about muscle memory a lot, and this is where this is going to come into play. Because pretty much everything you hold on, coffee. Oh shit, man. That's special. We got a new coffee maker that I'm really happy about, and I just figured out how to use some of the other features, and I'll be damned it works. And good news, the damn cat just walked into the room, so anything could happen. I talk about muscle memory a lot. This is one of those things where when shit's falling down around you, you know, the world's going to hell in a bucket. They canceled the Three Stooges reruns, the whole 9 yards. It's a lot better for you and the people you're with are taking care of or saving or whatever you're doing. It's a lot better if you can handle these things without having to. I'm turning the volume down on my voice a little bit. I'm looking at the sound bar and it looks like I'm screaming. It's a lot better if you think about it this way. Everyone's falling apart. You know, everything's falling apart. The sirens are going and everything. You guys decide to bug in. And everybody's losing their minds. And you're talking to everyone, telling them to stay cool. You're maintaining... Freaking cat. I swear to God, if you tear up the carpet... You're trying to explain to everyone while the world's falling apart that we're going to be okay. We have preparations. Look, we have beans. Look, we have food. Look, we have rice. Look, we have water. Look, we have this. But you can point to these things without having to take your eyes off or break eye contact. You can point to the shelf with the beans. You can point to the shelf with, dear God, I hope you have ravioli. You can point to the shelf with ravioli. Now, it's just a little thing, okay? But because you practiced and you know where everything's at, you can do this, and your level of confidence is greatly increased because you know where stuff's at. So now you're looking at a couple of freaked out people or kids or whatever, and you're explaining something to them without having to take your eyes off anything. You know, you're keeping eye contact, telling everybody it's going to be okay. World of difference. They see your confidence, they calm down. Well, this goes for and I swear to God, this cat, oh dear God, this cat. It goes for everything that you're going to be doing. You know, starting a fire, changing, even something stupid like changing batteries in a flashlight. The more you can do without, I mean, you really, in an emergency crisis situation, especially if you've got a bead on something, like, and I hate to talk about guns and shit like this, but if you're holding a bead on someone, you need to be able to reach down and maybe grab your radio. I mean, this is something we practice in the police department all the time. You know, blind grab. You know, partner looks at you and say handcuffs. You got to reach back and grab your handcuffs, and it's got to be smooth. You know, you can't. Where is it? And you're reaching for it because you didn't set your belt up right. Everything moved, and now it's upside down and sideways and inside out. But if you set your duty belt up right, you should be able to grab down without even looking or thinking about it. Instant motion. Because if you're holding someone's hands together and you got to grab your cuffs, that's not the time to figure out that cuff case migrated over to the other side of your belt. It's the same thing with survival, okay? You need to be able to understand that you need to be able to do this stuff without having to think about it. A lot of it, the life-saving, basic emergency kind of shit, it's all should be automatic. So, without further ado, let's get into this. So, welcoming new people possibly. Oh, no, one more thing. We started another podcast. It's Sasquatch Ghost Hunter. And this is one that my fiance has been on already. And I brought a couple of the podcasts over from this one just to give it some filler because I only had one podcast there. It was looking kind of stupid with only one podcast on or one episode on it. So I did bring over the Sasquatch spirit animal and the time we went ghost hunting in Gettysburg. But the new one that we did, she was involved in. This was before I met her, but I've been hearing about this for the last 6 or 7 years from her and her kids. And I believe it. It's not whether I believe the ghosts are running around and, with sheets on and saying boo and, slamming doors and, whatever. But I believe they believe it. And I believe the power of their mind is stronger than anything supernatural running around that house. So if they believe it, I believe it. What is it? Perception is a framework of reality. Their perception is it's real. Guess what? It's real. They're all very honest people. Her and her kids are all very honest people. They don't fabricate. They will tell you how it is no matter how much it hurts. Trust me. So you might want to take a listen to that. She's going to be my fiance is going to be very active in this. So give it a swing. That was her first time in a podcast, and I thought she did very well. All right. So all you knuckle draggers that are out there that aren't stuck working in the yard all weekend, let's do this. Let's get into this. So we talked about muscle memory. We talked about, knowing how to do your shit without having to look at it, that everything should happen. This is when things go bad. That's when it comes into play. When things go really bad, there are two types of people. The first says, I've trained for this, muscle memory, whatever. The second one says, I knew I should have done something. Well, you're the one that doesn't have ravioli and you're going to starve to death. The one that says, I should have done something. And if you don't have ravioli, you're just a mo to me anyhow. So if you don't like ravioli, just go ahead and get off the podcast right now. Go listen to a podcast about, knitting or something, because if you don't have ravioli, you don't have anything. I'd rather have a closet full of ravioli than a Rossi revolver. How's that? If you know Rossi, you know what I'm talking about. We're going to gently, patiently, and maybe slightly sarcastically move you out of the second group if you're there, which is the I should have done something group without ravioli. We're not going to, not with grand gestures, not with expensive gear, but with tiny habits, okay? And the people that have been prepping for a long time, there's that word prepping again, but the people that have been doing it for a long time, they know a lot of it is automatic. We're doing this because when everything hits the fan, and it will eventually in some form, you won't magically become competent. It won't. The shit is going to hit the fan. Is it going to be a massive regional power outage? Is it going to be a tsunami, hurricane, earthquake, volcano, flash flooding, civil war? You don't know. But this shit is going to hit the fan. History repeats. History always repeats. We got more shit coming, and depending on where you're at in the country, freaking California's probably going to fall off, crack off on the San Andreas Fault and fall into the ocean, and bye-bye Newsom. We don't even care. And Florida, man, I'm telling you, Florida, I see Florida underwater in about 50 years. So all you idiots moving down there, ruining the state from out of state and clogging up the state and screwing up the traffic and renting all the places and bringing the rent price up, you're going to be underwater in 50 years. So what comes around goes around. But if you practice the important things, starting fires, water purification, stupid things like rotating water storage, and stupid things like checking batteries and flashlights, you will become competent. Well, some of you will become competent. Some of you you're going to have trouble no matter what we do. So we're just trying to make it easier on you. Let's be honest. You know who you are. There's a bunch of people out there that literally can't chew gum and walk at the same time. These are the people, and it's just a joke. It's just for fun. Don't do this to embarrass anybody in front of a large group of people. But every now and then, if you suspect somebody, pull out your phone and get the camera open and start the video and tell them you're making a safety video or something, and you want to video them walking across the room, and watch how spastic some people are when they have to think about walking. It's freaking hilarious. They start using their arms in unnatural ways, and their head becomes locked like a robot, and it's freaking hilarious. So if you get a chance, if you suspect someone of that, that's the best way to do it. But don't forget, what comes around goes around. If you embarrass the shit out of somebody in front of a group of people, it's probably going to come back in spades. So be careful. But it is a good laugh if it's just a couple people. It's especially funny when they're drunk. So keep that in mind. The problem with plans and making plans and for this whole grand scheme of tiny habits. Sorry, that's a yawn. Oh, it's starting already. Most people approach preparedness like a New Year's resolution. This weekend I will organize everything, learn everything, and become a rugged individual capable of surviving the collapse of modern society. And then they organize half a shelf, get distracted, shiny keys, squirrel, or something like that, and reward themselves for the effort that they really didn't do, because preparedness takes commitment. Preparedness doesn't fail because it's hard. It fails because it's big. Tiny habits fix that. One of the biggest distractions, I'm going to tell you something, this is the truth. If you think about it, you've probably run into it or heard somebody talk about it. One of the biggest problems with getting prepared is like, you got your shelves for your canned goods and MREs and, things to throw at the cat. And you're like unloading, you just went and spent, you dropped a 50 and, I don't know street length for 50 anymore. I haven't been working the streets for a long time, so just $50. And you're taking everything out of the bag, and you realize this didn't even make a dent on one shelf. And you start getting distracted. And then you look over in the corner, and there's your AR-15 cleaning kit, and you think, I haven't cleaned that for a while. Maybe I better do that while I'm thinking about it. And you start cleaning it, and you look up and TV's on, and you're like, oh, shit, the game's on, and you throw your AR back together, and you only cleaned half of it, and you put your AR back in the corner where it was originally, and you sit there and watch the game, drink beer, get fatter, go to bed, and now you didn't have any more supplies stored or organized, and your AR is only halfway cleaned, which would piss me off if I found that out. I hate people that don't clean their guns. But this is what I'm talking about. It's hard. It's hard to stay prepared. I'm not nearly as prepared as I want to be. My, for lack of better terms, accomplice that gets on here, he is very prepared. He knows his shit. And I have relatives that I know are very prepared. They know their shit. I'm going to get there. But right now, I'm just, it's kind of between a rock and a hard place with this surgery and stuff. So I will get there. It's just going to take a little time. But damn it, I'm practicing. My back's all screwed up. I'm still cleaning weapons. I still go through stuff. I'm checking the dates on stuff. I'm going through my trauma bag, looking at Band-Aids and pressure dressings and stuff in their packets, making sure they're not expired. Because I'm going to tell you something, first aid equipment's like vegetables and fruit. They will expire. They will spoil. When you go to grab that pressure dressing, like maybe a chest pad or something, and you want to put a pressure dressing on, and you reach in there and grab it, and if the paper that's on it crumbles in your hand, that it's wrapped in, you don't use that pressure dressing. That's not sterile anymore. You need to check, and it sucks because first aid supplies aren't like water. You can't say, well, we got to start drinking this one and backfill because the water's due for a rotation, or these cans are saying they're going to expire. We got to eat some of this food and buy more. First aid shit isn't like that. When it expires, and it's not cheap. So yeah, that's the other thing is, like I said, with the half a shelf of groceries, preparedness is expensive, but it doesn't have to be. You buy it incrementally, but you have to be dedicated. You have to say, you know what, I'm going to give half an hour a week to going through my supplies, and I'm going to give half an hour a week to go and get some groceries. And I'm going to give half an hour a week to do gun clean, which isn't nearly enough time, so we're going to say an hour. But, you're going to spend half an hour a week going over first aid stuff, and you might the next week spend half an hour or an hour a week. Well, let's say that same week, half an hour a week, using your laser sight and making sure your AR is still BZO'd, battle site 0. So I don't know how many out there are mathematicians, but there's roughly, quick math in my head, 170 hours in a week. And you just use 3 of them to prepare and, hone your skill set. 3 hours. And I know you're not going to clean your gun every week, so you use 2 hours. If that's too much time for you to prepare and start practicing habits and things, you're not going to make it. You're not dedicated enough when the shit hits a fan and everything's falling down around you, and you got to do shit, and you got to save people, and you got to, Grandpa fell down the steps. He's got a compound fracture. He's squirting blood all over the wall like a Rorschach painting. And you've got nothing to do. You open up that first aid bag and you freeze because you don't know what you're doing. Meanwhile, he's losing bodily fluids at the rate of, way too fast. And you start pulling shit out of the bag, and there's shit everywhere, and now it's contaminated because it's got his blood on it. That's on you because you didn't practice. Maybe you didn't like Grandpa, so you just take your time anyhow. But honest to God, that's on you because you didn't practice. So start getting in that mindset. I don't want to keep reminding you. All right. Philosophy of barely effort. Here's the rule. Okay, and this is what I was talking about, doing small things to practice, not, embarking upon a 24-hour journey of enlightenment with survival tactics. I'm talking about the philosophy of barely effort. Here's the rule. If it feels like a chore, you won't do it. If it takes less than 10 minutes, you probably will. So every habit we're talking about tonight lives in that sweet spot, short, repeatable, just slightly inconvenient, but enough to complain about, which we will. That's what we do, human nature. Because survival, as it turns out, is mostly about doing small things correctly over and over and over again. It is not about heroics. It's about consistency, which is unfortunate because consistency is not exciting. This is why some people get into prepping. They're lacking that exciting element in their life. They want to be the guy to run out on the front porch with the AR and shoot the zombies coming over the hill and walk back in and have the cute girl make you a big dinner because you took all the zombies out. And dude, that's not survival prepping or dudettes or whatever. And don't forget, whatever I talk about, if I say bro or dude, men, women, you're both in it. It's not like I'm singling out women or singling out men. And I don't want to do the shit that Hegseth had to do with the press when they said, fly boys or whatever, but you never say anything about the fly girls. They're all included. Everybody's included, okay? So I don't want to hear any of this shit about why don't you ever talk towards the women, all right? So, dudes, the weekly survival habit system. Now that we talked about, the little shit, little effort, blah, blah, blah. We're going to structure this so you can practice one habit per week. See, I'm not even going to overload you. I'm not going to give you 10. I'm not going to give you 5. I'm going to give you one thing a week to practice on. Maybe what it is up to you. I'm going to give you a brief outline on it, but let's go over it. Because you're building a system, not overwhelming yourself into quitting, because some people will. You'll hold on coffee. You're going to get bored with it. You're going to, like I said, you're going to see a set of keys dangling or a squirrel running across the yard, and you're going to forget what you were doing. Meanwhile, your AR's in 200 pieces, and you just walked away from it because, you get distracted. It's human nature. So, again, we're not going to be once a week. We're not going to be practicing 10. We're not going to be practicing 5. We're going to be practicing one thing. Again, you're building a system. You're not overwhelming yourself. So let's say week 1, you're going to look at, let's say water. The goal is here to try not to dehydrate yourself dramatically. You're just going to practice water purification or go over your water store. This is all included in when you look at water. And I'm telling you, you can do any of these in any order. I would recommend you do the food and water first, but that's up to you. So we're just going to go over a couple things, and then you do it your way. And if you think there's other things you can do that aren't on this list, believe me, there's probably 100 things you could do without even stretching your imagination. So all you're doing, you're checking your stored water. You're going to rotate if necessary. You're going to refill what's missing or backfill what's missing. And to round it out, throw in one water purification method. It doesn't have to be 200 different ways to do it. You don't have to set up a reverse osmosis system. just practice one. Look at your pills. Go through the motions of putting a pill in water. You really should. I wouldn't recommend, if they're all in a pill bottle and it's sealed, don't open it. Don't practice it. You're going to ruin the pills. Just leave them in the water bottle. I'm not a big fan of water purification pills anyhow, but it's better than absolutely nothing. And I said in a podcast before, so let's go over this real quick just so it starts to get in your head, because this is shit that's going to make a difference. These pills, most of the pills, when you think about water purification and, you're out in the woods or you're fighting, the heat, you're trying to build some kind of shelter to get out of the sun or the opposite, to get it out of the cold, and you're sitting there overexerting yourself, you're going to need a lot of water because you're going to be sweating your ass off, okay? You drink your canteen, you go down to the local creek bed, you fill it up, you drop the pill in there, and you drink more water. No, that's not how it happens. You're going to fill up that canteen, you're going to drop the pill in there, and you're going to let it sit for probably half an hour to 45 minutes, maybe longer, depending on what the pill it is. Then you're going to shake it up really good and probably let it sit again for another half hour or some weird amount of time. Still not drinking any water yet. So you just exerted the shit out of yourself, didn't drink nearly enough water. You're dehydrated now, you got a headache, you got double vision, you can't even grab your canteen because you can't see it clearly. Congratulations, you relied on the wrong method for emergency water. So this is why I'm saying, now what the hell am I hearing? Oh, it's on outside. I got the window open. Use one of those pressure filters. I use a pump. I have a really nice pump system that I really, really like. I do have to get extra filters for it, but, I got 10,000 gallons before I have to do that, so I got a little bit of time. I like redundancy. I like to have 3 filters there with the pack, but, it is what it is. I only have one backup filter. Again, 10 million gallons, or, maybe it's 10,000 gallons. I don't know. It's going to be a lot of water, whatever it is. But whatever the system is, there's that one. I can't think of the name of it. I wouldn't say it because I'm not going to do a free advertisement, but it's incredible. It's like this tumbler, and you fill it up with water, and you push the top half of the cup down. It's like a French coffee press, and the water on top is clean. You can drink it, and it's as good as my pump filter. They're expensive. And before you say, no, I saw one on Amazon for $40, you want to put your life on that, cleaning out parasites and harmful chemicals and other bad shit in the water on a $45 water filter, you go for it, man, because your shit's going to be mine when you're dead there alongside the road with your nice new pack and all the stuff in it. Don't go cheap on water filters. Pills are not your only way. And while we're on the subject of pills, one more time, I'd rather use Clorox. I'd rather use a couple drops of Clorox in water than a purification pill any day. You won't taste it. If you do, you use too much Clorox, but you won't taste it, and it's a lot quicker than a pill. I think the rule of thumb, it's been years. I think it's 15 minutes. Once you treat the water, you got to give it 15 minutes with the Clorox. You got to remember, you can go weeks without food, literally weeks without food. You can only go 3 days without water, and I'm going to tell you, on the second day, you're going to start making bad decisions. By the third day, you're useless. And when you don't have water and you realize you don't have water, you have about 3 minutes before you go into a stage of massive panic. Something small to practice is your water, okay? Next week, think of something like, I don't want to say that. Well, we said food, but let's do something different to keep it interesting. Light. Let's work on portable light sources. You want to be able to see things before they become problems. That's a simple rule. For every flashlight you own, you have to find it if you're thinking you're going to be taking it with you. If you have to bug out, dear God, I hope you don't. But even if you're staying in your house, you got to go find your flashlight. You got to make sure your kids didn't take the batteries out for the remote control on the TV or, Transformers or whatever the hell kids are playing with anymore. You will be shocked. You will be shocked if it's a flashlight in a common area in plain sight. I'm going to say 75% of the time the batteries are gone, or one of the batteries is gone and it's still useless. So you got to make flashlights ready to go. And I think the new Energizers and Duracells, if they're not exposed to extreme heat temperatures, I think it's some weird number, like 14 months or 16 months, they're good before they recommend you rotate them. You rotate it when you rotate the smoke detector batteries. It's that simple. It's you stay ahead of the curve when you're doing this stuff. But every flashlight you own, all of them, get them out, line them up, test all of them. If you turn it on and it doesn't look quite right, even though the batteries are well within the expiration, if you turn it on and it doesn't look right, just replace the batteries right there. All right? Any of them that flicker or blink like they're in a horror movie, throw them away. And I'm going to tell you, if you still have flashlights that use the tungsten bulbs or whatever the hell they were, get rid of them. Get rid of them. The LED flashlights are cheaper. They're half the size. They're better light, and the light lasts. You on a tungsten bulb flashlight is gonna on full tilt. Like we used to carry the mag lights, the big metal mag lights, like like nightsticks, which we used them as. But those ones with like the 5D cell batteries that weighed about as much as a Buick, light on, that thing would stay on for about 25 to 30 minutes. My good LED pen light that I carry, which you could never use for a nightstick, obviously. You can use it like a Yakawara, but that's about it. But that one is every bit as bright and it goes a distance every bit as far, maybe further, than my big-ass mag light. And it weighs about as much as a pen, a little more than a regular pen. And I can turn that on and it'll stay on at that intensity for 4.5, 5 hours. So that's the difference. You're going to use a lot less batteries, a lot less power, and it's going to last a lot longer. Think about it this way. Would you rather be looking at what's going, making the noise at your back door, or trying to get through your back door, or rummaging around on your back porch? Or would you rather be whispering to the person alongside you, why isn't this damn thing working, in a very dark room? And all you had to do was check the flashlights and check the batteries, and that wouldn't have happened. Now, if you're going to go to Dollar Tree and get flashlights for 99 cents, or what is it, $1.25 now, whatever. If you're going to go to Dollar Tree and buy your flashlight, then you deserve whatever's coming. I'm not saying go to, Bass Pro Shop and buy that $400 flashlight, because that's bullshit. But you can get a good flashlight for about $10-15 at Harbor Freight. There I go doing advertisements again. I'm just going to say it. This is for you guys. You can't buy everything at Harbor Freight for survival. Okay, you just can't. But you can get an axe that's going to cost you like $8, and it's just fine for knocking shit around and cutting small wood and stuff. Versus going somewhere else or survival. One of these tactical false profit sites, and pay $50 for an axe that's going to do the exact same thing. You can get the batteries, and I wouldn't get the batteries there, but the flashlights are good. They're really good. Ammo cans, tarps, shit like that. They have paracord, which is really hard to find in the store. Real 5-strand paracord. So that's your gift. I gave you a place to go to buy your shit. That's survivor paradise for the most part. Gloves, shit like that. Absolutely. Do not. Nothing for food, water, or, life safety. I wouldn't buy a knife there. But anything else, tarps and rope and, shit you're going to use to, build a lean-to or something. Absolutely. I carry 2 tarps all the time and enough 550 cord to string a parachute. So I'm covered. I don't know about you, but I'm covered. Let's go on to the next week. Why don't you practice fire? Controlled burning, preferably, not like, oh shit, look what I did, and half the city's on fire. But a controlled burn. Practice starting a fire in a fire pit, a stone-walled fire pit, or one of those nice outdoor ones made out of metal that some of you can afford. But try, and I would say try this first, just so you can understand how stupid it is to rely only on a ferro rod. First, try to start a fire in a fire pit with a ferro rod. See how much you really know about starting a fire, okay? And I'm even going to save you a lot of grief before you get out there and start. Get a piece of sandpaper and get all the black shit off the ferro rod. It is useless until you get that black shit off of there. You will never start a fire with that black shit on your ferro rod. Scrape it off, okay? But then try to start a fire. See if you know what the hell you're doing. Surprisingly, some people are able to without ever doing it before. Years and years ago, I was camping with some friends, and one of the guys, he brought a girl with. She was just his friend. I'm thinking she batted for the other team, if you know what I mean. But she was pretty outdoorsy for the most part. And we were talking about, we're going to go gather firewood. If you can stay here. And she had like a broken ankle or something. It wasn't like we were hiking in the Rockies or anything like that. Ankle sprain maybe. And we're like, we're going to go get firewood. You just stay here. And she said, well, I'll get a small fire started. And everybody was like, yeah, okay, whatever. And we got back, and she had one of the most beautiful, it was like one of those Jenga fire towers going. Oh, man, I was like, holy shit. And for the best of my knowledge, she used a ferro rod. I didn't see it. Part of me doesn't believe it, but, whatever. So, again, we're going to practice starting a fire in a controlled environment, not in your living room, not in the kitchen, but outside in a fire ring. Basements are included also, not in the basement. The goal is not to become a wilderness expert here. The goal is not to Google how to make a fire during an emergency. It's not going to do you any good. Oh, man. The way these people start fires on YouTube and shit, some of it, I don't know where they get the ferro rods from. I think it's like, some kind of, like how the aliens helped the Egyptians build pyramids. I think their ferro rods came from aliens, because they strike that thing. They go down that ferro rod and strike it, and it's like shooting a flamethrower at a log. I've never seen a ferro rod that works like that. Even the really expensive ones don't work that good. So practice controlled burning. Remember the words controlled burning. Controlled means it won't get out of control, means it won't set your neighbor's barn on fire. Controlled burning. And if you don't have an area where you can do a controlled practice, don't do it. All right. Week 4. Now you're going to get in, let's say, jump on food, hit food. You got to get on food. Eat food before. I was proud of this one. You're going to eat your food before it becomes a science experiment. Meaning, petri dish and mold and shit like that, for those of you that didn't grab it right away. Simple rules for food. You got to keep food storage and rationing and everything very, very simple, so you don't get confused and nobody else does. Get yourself a pack of Sharpies, write right on the food, the date you got it. It doesn't matter what the expiration is. Write the date you got it, and that'll show that you not only wrote the date on it, but you looked at the can and checked it. Like if it's cans, you looked at it and checked it, and it wasn't bulging or leaking or anything. These are the simple little things I'm talking about, okay? So what you want to do in plain sight, so you can see it right away in good handwriting, and if you got bad handwriting, get somebody else to do it. I'm not saying get a label maker or anything like that, but you got to be able to read this. The date you got it and the date you think it expires. Because everybody knows you got a can of ravioli. I'm living proof. You got a can of ravioli, it expired 2 years ago. It's still damn good. And you're not going to grow an arm out of your forehead because it's spoiled or anything. Ravioli is good for 2 years after the expiration date if it's in a controlled environment. Now, I'm not telling you to do that. I'm not telling you because if you do something stupid and you get some kind of testicle cancer or something because you ate spoiled ravioli, I don't want to be blamed for it, so don't do it. What I do is I give ravioli 2 years past the expiration date because I store shit in a controlled environment. That's good for another one of my favorites for storage is corned beef hash, things like that, because that's a lot of fat and energy and stuff you need to survive. So I'm getting off topic there. That's a whole nother podcast. But when you look at that and you take it off the shelf and you're past that, because you will, it'll happen. It's gonna expire probably a week or two or maybe even a month after you wrote it on the can. It should either eat it or get rid of it. And if you open it up and it's discolored or smells funny, or you put the can opener on it and it hisses for 15 minutes after you open it, throw it away. So you're checking your expiration dates, and I would come up with a good rule of thumb that you say, you know what, canned peaches are good a year after their expiration date or whatever. Just make it the same for everything. Make it the smallest, the lowest time period after expiration, and just apply it to everything. That makes it so much simpler. Remember I said keep it simple? Keep it simple. You got to try it. If you got like a huge shelf full of ravioli, and I keep going back to ravioli because I'm hungry for ravioli right now, and you're a year past the expiration date, man, open one of them bad boys up and try it and smell it and see if it's still good. If it's not good, you got to get rid of it. And if you're tasting it and you're like, it tastes okay, but something seems different, you got to make the call right there. Do I start eating it to get rid of it, or do I throw it away? But you're not going to keep it on the shelf. The simple fact is, because discovering you hate and can't eat your emergency food because it expired or it tastes bad or whatever in a real emergency is not ideal. You need to figure that out before it happens. You're just stupid. I mean, you don't get cheap. I mean, don't go crazy. Don't buy like canned filet mignon, but get halfway decent food. Maybe brands you've heard of before for some of it. If you know a generic kind that you're happy with and it's not a real thin can that you can feel it bulging in from the sides from some weird foreign country wherever they make, whatever, that's fine. But if it's one of those countries where you don't know anything about it, like I got to tell you, some of this Chinese survival food, I wouldn't feed it to POWs. It's that bad. Don't be buying survival food on Temu. That's all I'm saying. Because they have it. Let's start on first aid. That's a biggie. That's a big one for me. I've been an EMT for longer than I care to remember. First aid. Now here's the deal. Okay. You know the life-saving steps, right? You know the four main life-saving steps: start the breathing, stop the bleeding, protect the wound, treat for shock. In that order. Start the breathing, which includes, circulation, chest pump, chest compressions. Stop the bleeding. If you're doing chest compressions on someone and blood's squirting out of their leg, stop doing chest compressions, pressure dressing on the leg, reevaluate, and go. But you got to do a primary survey when you work on someone. So let's say that's the first thing you practice is a primary survey, because you don't know. They might be laying there unconscious, barely breathing, and you can't figure out what's wrong with them. And then you get down and you get their shoe off and you get their sock off and you see 2 puncture wounds in one of their toes. They got bit by a snake. But you didn't know that. You just thought they had a heart attack and you were too lazy to do a primary survey. So I'm going to say that's the first one you practice as a primary survey. You're checking limbs, abdomen for bruising, compartmentalization of blood in the chest. There's a big thing. It happens a lot in auto accidents, and it happens a lot in fall victims. We used to call it the Walking Dead. I don't know what they call it now. It's a form of something called pericardial tamponade, and it's when the blood compartmentalizes in the chest, and it makes it impossible for the heart to breathe. There's that much pressure on the heart with the blood swelling up in the chest that the heart stops beating. It's like you keep squeezing and squeezing and squeezing until it stops. And we used to call them the Walking Dead, because if you could get to the scene of the accident quick enough, they're standing there walking around talking like nothing happened. And first thing you do is you sit them down or you get them on the stretcher, and you start your primary survey, and you lift up their shirt, and there's a perfect impression of the steering wheel on their chest. And they're discolored. They're cyanotic. They're changing colors and shit around their chest because the blood's compartmentalizing now. You got a problem. You got a big problem, and there's probably nothing you're going to be able to do for them, to be honest with you. I haven't run vehicle accident calls forever, so I don't know what they're doing now. More people are wearing their seatbelts, so it's not that big of a deal. Back in the day when I was really active on the ambulance, the volunteer ambulance, nobody wore their seatbelts. We were real men. We died like real men. We didn't wear seatbelts. There weren't any airbags. Now you got a better chance, but I still, out of force of habit, would check for that. And that's why we used to call them the Walking Dead, because you get there, they're fine. They're walking around talking, and then they start getting dizzy, and they fall to their knees, and they start gargling blood, and then the next thing you know, they're dead. And you never even knew anything was wrong with them when you got there. So primary survey, okay? First thing you want to practice, and you practice it with someone. That's not a reason to get your hand up your girlfriend's shirt or anything. I'm just saying, practice. You got to look. You got to be able to know if somebody's hurt and where they're hurt, so you can treat the wound. Practice bandaging skills 1 week. You'd be surprised how hard it is to really put on like a ACE wrap properly and effectively, especially on a joint. You don't just do that. You got to practice that. Tourniquets. What do you know about tourniquets? I'm not going to tell you how to use a tourniquet. You need to learn how to use a tourniquet, or don't put it on. You need to know basic wound care. You got to know basic wound cleansing. You got to know, if there's a stick hanging out of somebody's eye, do I yank it out or what do I do? Good story for you. Over in another country, a long time ago in the Marines, we were on a range and range time was low. We weren't getting a lot of time shooting. So we decided we were going to try to do Range Rover surfing, which means you stand on top of the Range Rover, a couple of ropes coming up the side off the mirrors, and you hold onto the ropes and surf while the person driving the Range Rover tries to throw you. That's just the kind of shit Marines do, or used to do. I don't know what these young Marines do anymore. And two of the people, not going to mention their names, decided to give it a shot. One of them was a sergeant, and the person driving was a corporal. And he decided to try to drive him through the trees, to throw him off by driving through the trees, some low-hanging branches. And the sergeant fell off, and he got up and he was laughing, and we were all laughing because he took a pretty good fall. He hit a branch pretty hard, and we were all laughing our asses off. And he gets up and he goes, I think I broke my nose. My nose is killing me. And I finally got him to pull his hands off his nose, and there was a twig going through his nose. And it was funny as hell. I got to tell you, it looked like the first nasal piercing, ever, nose piercing ever. But he had this, not even a quarter inch, maybe an eighth of an inch branch just poking through his nose. It was like 4 inches long. Funny as shit. Best part was pulling it out. Probably should have taken him to the corpsman, but we had more Range Rover surfing to do, so we had to get that stick out of there. But preliminary survey, if I'd have just said, you're fine, get going, because he had his hands over his nose, we'd have never known that stick was through his nose until later, probably, because, I don't know, maybe we would have. I guess you'd notice a stick through somebody's nose. I digress. But a primary survey is very important. Let's just leave it with that. Next week. Okay, man, this is a tough one because it's really hard to do online or even talking. We're going to have to do this on video when we do this for real. We're not going to be able to talk you through this. Navigation, know where you are, ideally. I don't want anyone ever to rely on a GPS. They take batteries, and most GPSs, like on your cell phone, because you think your cell phone will get you anywhere, running that GPS chews the battery up. You need to know how to read a map, a physical map with a compass, a lymphatic compass. You need to know how to shoot your azimuth. You need to know how to shoot a back azimuth. You need to know how to read terrain features on a topographical map. Honestly, I think it creates a much better picture than using GPS, handheld GPS. And you have to learn to commit to directions when you make them. You can't be changing on the move unless, you come up to a cliff face and you got to, go around or something like that, or a large body of water. But you have to commit to your directions once you set them. That's how map reading works. If you start to swing or go a different way, or say, well, it's going to be shorter if we go this way, and then try to adjust, you've already started a problem. Stay the course. That's where that saying comes from. Not using a map correctly with a compass, just trying to eyeball it, or thinking you can rely on a GPS for days in the woods. That's how people become stories and statistics. That's how you become lost for 6 months and your bones are found after 6 months. You need to be able to commit to directions and what you're going to do. However you're going to do it, dead reckoning, whatever you're going to do, you need to commit to it and stick to it. That's extreme. It's the most important part of navigation. Another week you could practice communication. You're talking without Wi-Fi or Zoom meeting, or Google Meet or whatever the hell it is, or that Facebook chat. None of that shit. You need to be able to work on communications, radios, contact plans. Remember we talked about the radio plan before. Meeting points, alternate meeting points. You should be able to safely evacuate from a town that's having some kind of a disaster, like a fire or earthquake, you should be able to evacuate 10 people safely. You should be able to evacuate 10 people from 10 separate locations with no phones or radios. They should be able to know where to go, and you should be able to meet up there. And you should go as far as to have an alternate place just in case that first one's compromised with natural disasters, fires, floods, alien attack, whatever. You should not even need to pick up a radio or a phone or anything. People should just know where to go to meet, a safe place. In a real emergency, phone towers are going to go down. Your phone's going to become a very expensive paperweight. It's going to be very sleek, but it's going to be very useless. Do not rely on phones in emergency. Never rely on phones in emergency. You can try it, but you're wasting time. If you got to go, head to the first assembly point. If you can't get to the first assembly point, you get to the backup assembly point. Maybe some of the people made it there because they weren't stupid and waited like you, and they know, well, not everybody's here. Let's check the alternate point. All right, enough said. Learn how to read a map. Learn how to communicate. Learn what assembly points are. Don't learn all this in 1 week. You ever take little things, pick a topic, read about it, practice it, or ask someone who knows. But start practicing these things. I try to teach situational awareness a couple times to people. It works with some people. It doesn't work with my fiance, or I don't even think it works with my accomplice's fiance. Both of them are very cute. They're actually both very smart. They're very intuitive. But if we're completely honest, if we're evacuating a town because earthquake is and the earth opened up and it's swallowing buildings, and we're trying to get out of the town, and we're running down the street and we hear buildings collapsing behind us, and we're running as fast as we can. If we pass a TJ Maxx, they're probably going to break off and go into the TJ Maxx. It's that simple. Situational awareness is something you got or you don't. It's either something you commit to or you don't. The task is simple for practice. Start noticing things. Start noticing exits in stores, restaurants, doctors' offices, wherever. Start noticing people. Why is he keeping his hands in his pockets? Why is he looking around why is he wearing a mask and a sweatshirt in 100-degree weather? Changes in your environment. Are all the birds leaving? Are all the bees leaving? Is a T-Rex running through your neighborhood? Maybe, whatever. Notice changes in your environment. And not in a paranoid way, just observant. The earlier you notice a problem, the less dramatic your solution needs to be. I hate having to run around with my hands in the air screaming, we're all going to die. I hate being that person. I'd rather know what's going on before it gets down to that. Hold on, coffee. Oh, by the way, you got to get one of those mug heaters. It keeps your coffee warmer 2-3 times as long. You just sit your mug on it, and it stays hot. Incredible piece of technology. I think I like it better than the television. Oh my God, that's good coffee. I'm not going to advertise where the coffee's from this week, but that's probably the second best coffee we ever got right there. Hold on, more coffee. I traditionally drink my coffee black if it's really good coffee. I have this bad habit from the Marine Corps putting that powdered coffee creamer in my coffee. I don't know why I do it. I don't even like it. But it's something that's it's not complete without it. This is muscle memory. That instant coffee and MREs and C-Rats back in the day. That coffee was horrible. You put anything in there you could to make it taste better, and that powdered creamer is one of them. On a side note, powdered creamer is great for starting fires. I'm giving you a gift. If you can get that powder, especially the cheaper it gets with the higher the fat count, the better it is. That stuff's like gunpowder when it comes to starting a fire, and it actually burns longer. When it starts to caramelize and burn, it doesn't smell so great, but man, you're starting a fire. If you need a fire, put your coffee creamer on. I always have some instant coffee and coffee creamer, powdered coffee creamer in my 3-day bag. All right, let's go over mobility. Can you actually move? Is it safe to move? Did you think this through? Did you discuss it with everyone? Does everyone know the plan? Have you checked your bag? Put your bag on and carry it. Walk with it for, go for a walk. Go to a park somewhere. Put your pack on full weight. Don't cheat. Full weight. If you have a concealed carry permit, put your weapon system in there, because that's probably how you're going to carry it to start any house. But walk with it. Try to walk at least 2 or 3 miles with it to see if you can, if it's comfortable. Is it rubbing? Is it creating a hot spot? This is something you can do 1 week. Yeah, 2 mile walk is going to take more than half an hour. But you know what? If you get in a situation where you got to go and you got to get out of town and you put that pack on and it's okay for about 10 minutes and then that thing starts rubbing and you realize you don't have the weight distributed appropriately and it's a bad situation. So you're going to practice mobility, and this is part of mobility. Can you walk with your pack? I don't recommend you walk with an inch bag for anything. I don't recommend you carry an inch bag. Inch stands for I'm never coming home bag. That means you're taking everything you can and you're never coming back. Don't walk with one of those bags because you're never going to do that. That's never going to be a situation you're going to be working for. It might happen, but I really think I think you have a better possibility of being struck by lightning simultaneously being bitten by a shark, being stung by a bee on your eyeball. I think there's a better chance of all three of those things happening all at once than you having to use an inch bag. So I wouldn't even pack an inch bag. If you have the money and you got the resources, go for it, but I wouldn't waste the money on it. If you want to pack one and keep it in your vehicle, like if you have a crew cab pickup truck or a big-ass SUV like an Expedition, sure, throw it in there. What the hell? But you're still going to have to check the stocks in the bag. You're going to have to check the food. You're going to have to rotate stuff, first aid equipment. I actually when I went through one of my first aid bags, one of my small trauma bags, it was coming up on expiration on some of the bandages and stuff. And I looked and I had money in my, first aid, not first aid, medical exemption. You know, you kick in so much money per paycheck and there's money in there and you can use it for anything medical, but you can only use it for medical. I had enough money. I was in a hurry. I'm not getting out like I used to because of my injury. I just bought a whole Rhino rescue kit rather than try to rebuild another kit because I like the Rhino. The Rhino rescue kits with nasal airway and the chest seal are really, really nice. That's really all you need. I put some aspirin and some, diarrhea, stuff for diarrhea in there. But other than that, that kit comes pretty well stocked. Again, that was my cohort suggestion about Rhino Rescue. I'm very pleased with them. I had gotten one not that long ago, probably about 2 weeks ago, that I was really disappointed with. But then I realized, this was just an entry level, something better than nothing. The one I got with that money from that first aid thing is a badass kit. I've only added a few things and taken a few things out. I don't leave the first aid manual in there. I'm better trained in the first aid manual. So I always take that out, and I don't need the trauma card. There's no trauma in survival, trauma card in survival. It's not like you're going to be going to the survival hospital just down the street from the survival 7-Eleven. It doesn't work like that. But I'm just saying, if you're in a hurry and you don't know how to build a bag, which we're going to talk about in first aid kit, FAK, Rhino Rescue's a pretty good choice. And again, I'm doing another free fucking ad. I can't believe this. But the trauma, the kit they carry with the nasal airway, if you don't know how to use it, it doesn't matter. And if you don't know what a chest seal is or you don't know how to use it, it doesn't matter. I happen to like it. I happen to like their kit, and I know what I'm talking about. Holy shit, we got off the subject. We're not talking about mobility yet. You have to realize if you're walking with that bag, you're going to realize it's heavier than your optimism suggested. It's going to be heavy. Now, here's the trick. If you learn how to pack and you get a good pack with a frame, even a 3-day pack with the internal frame, it's going to be a lot better for you. You have to know how to pack, though. If you don't have that packed right, it doesn't matter how good of a pack it is. I have an excellent pack. It's one of the things I believe spending money in, because a pack is going to wreck you or make you. I got 2 tarps in there. I got food in there for days. I got so much stuff, and it's small. It's very small. It's bigger than my, EDC, but it's small. It doesn't draw attention. I have a rain cover for it. It's a really good pack. Survive, and you got to adjust it accordingly. But you have to remember the whole time, even when you're checking these packs and going through everything, you have to remember, survival is not about owning gear. It's about being able to move with it, carry it, and use it. And I'll say it again. It's not about owning gear. It's about being able to move with it, being able to carry the weight and being able to use what you're carrying. You know, if you got 30 cans of ravioli in there, which sounds good to me, if you got 30 cans of ravioli in there and you don't have a can opener, you're screwed. Did you check anything? Every pack I have on 550 cord is one of the John Wayne P38s. In my EDC, I have a John Wayne can opener. Everything I own, I have one in my wallet. I used to carry one taped up or with rubber bands on my dog tags because that thing's going to come open and cut you like a freaking knife. But I always had a P38 with me everywhere I went, and I still do for the most. I think I have one in a glove compartment in my truck. Don't buy those big ones again on Temu. And the only reason I mention Temu by name isn't for free advertisement. I'm telling you, watch what you buy on Temu. Don't buy that shit on Temu. Go to a gun show. The guy's gonna have some guy's gonna have a big coffee can full of John Wayne can openers, P38s. That's where you want to get a can opener. Make sure when you open it, push it as far as you can and it doesn't snap off. You don't want that one. You want the one that you can drive a truck over and all it's going to do is slice a tire. But, and hear me out there, you little survival fanatics, practice with it. Most people can't just pick one up and use it. There's actually something to it. It beats the can opener on a Swiss Army knife. God, I hate Swiss Army knives. It beats smashing the can with a hammer until it opens because you're just going to shoot ravioli across the field. Get a P38. Learn how to use it. One of the things that people don't do, and it's something I tried to stress before in a podcast about the warrior mindset, is this is going to be another week. It's going to be mental rehearsal. Think before you panic. When you're sitting there watching TV and like the commercials are droning on, God, I hate commercials, but when the commercials are droning on, look around the room. Say to yourself, that's where the flashlight is. Where's the closest weapon if I need to go over it? When you're sitting in the store, like I don't know what stores you got near you. I say a Walmart because they're everywhere. And you're sitting in the husband chair, and that's the name of the chair outside the women's changing room. And you're sitting there holding a purse and, 20 shirts that she's going to try on for the next 6.5 days. Start thinking, where's the closest exit? How am I going to get out of here? Somebody goes in here and starts going pew, pew. Which way am I going to go? Front door, they go pew, pew. I'm going that way. Back door, they go pew, pew. I'm going that way. But start doing mental rehearsals. Oh, boy, mental rehearsals. Ask yourself, what do I do first? We used to, all the time in our patrol vehicle, we used to throw scenarios at each other constantly. Just think about it, If the first thing you think of is when you start going down that dark road and going over scenarios, because it is a dark road, and the first thing you come up with is you're panicking just thinking about it, that's okay, because now you have something to improve. When you start thinking about a situation and that first thought comes into your mind, I don't know what the hell I would do, that's a good thing, because now you can prepare. Now you can think about it. So right about the third or the fourth day where you're sitting there with all of her blouses and dresses and you're still holding her purse with that death grip, at least you know how you're going to get out of the building now. The big advantage to sitting there with that big pile of clothing waiting for your spouse to come out of the dressing room is if there's an active shooter, you can just hide under all the clothing. They're never going to see you. I've thought of that before. You got a whole rack of shoes you can throw at somebody if you have to. But yeah, I just get under the clothing. Screw it. All right. And listen, really, like I said, if you think of this and you have no answer and you start to mentally panic, or not really mentally panic, but you're just like, shit, I don't know what I'm going to do. That's not a bad thing. It really isn't. You use that to improve. Always use that to improve. Why this works, what we talked about, the weekly practice and being mentally prepared. These habits are going to work because they're realistic. You're not practicing, like I said, for zombies or, UFO attacks. You're practicing for realistic situations. If you need to evacuate, if you're out in the woods and it's cold, you need to know how to start a fire. You need to know how to purify water. Even if you're staying home, after power shuts down, that water coming out of the faucet, you don't know that it's any good. If you can't boil it, you're going to have to purify it. We might go over reverse osmosis now that I'm thinking about it sooner or later. But for right now, we're just going to talk about, let's stay on task. Look at me talking about getting sidetracked, and then I do it. You're going to find that if you start doing this, you're going to become more capable every week. And the really cool thing is you're going to start getting better at things that you haven't even practiced at yet, because your mindset is going to be attuned to that whole survival mindset, and you're going to be able to look at a situation and extrapolate a solution much quicker once you start training your mind to do it. It's so much easier. But when you practice these things, you're not on a clock. Practice them slowly, practice them quietly, and be relentless about it. Don't stop until you get it. And if you allotted yourself an hour to practice, say, knots, that's a very good survival skill, by the way. If you spend an hour and you still don't know knots, practice them again the next week. And if you still can't get them, check for a head injury. But seriously, if you don't get it one week, do it again the next week while it's still fresh in your head. One of the big gains is the confidence effect. After a few months, something's going to snap. You're not guessing anymore. You know what you're doing. You've tested your gear. You've practiced your skills. You've made small mistakes, luckily when it didn't matter, and you corrected them. You're actually confident in your skills now. You might never have been confident in anything in your life, but you can throw out a knot that would make a merchant marine jealous. You start throwing out knots and stuff, or you start building fires without even looking in the fire pit. You're just, cleaning your ferro rod. And by the way, guys, while we're on it with the ferro rods, you should have at least 2 or 3 lighters in your shit. 2 or 3 lighters should fail before you have to go to a ferro rod. Your ferro rod should not be your primary source of starting a fire. I'm just saying. And don't go into that magnifying glass bullshit. You don't have time. You can cook ants with them, but don't try to start a fire with a magnifying glass. Okay, so remember, you're doing all this so when something happens, your brain doesn't freeze. It says, oh, this shit again, but you can do it, which is exactly where you want to be. This is a sarcastic reality check, but let's be honest. Most emergencies aren't even dramatic. They're just inconvenient. Power outages, storms, basic supply issues. Very few people ever really need to survive in the wilderness. So don't be thinking that's your plan of action. Bug out and into the woods. You will not carry enough to keep yourself alive unless you're SAS or, Green Beret or Force Recon or something like that. You're not going to make it in the woods. I don't care how nice the weather is. I don't care. If it's cold, you're going to freeze. If it's hot, you're going to get bit by a snake. Something's going to happen, but you're not going to make it in the woods if you don't know what you're doing. You need to know that you're going to try to survive bugging in. So what I was saying again is they're inconvenient. You're not going to run into the woods and survive. Everyone involved, from the youngest to the oldest, is going to need to know how to handle disruptions, how to handle situations. And if you don't know who to talk to, you do not need to become a survival expert. You just need to be the least prepared person in the room, for lack of better terms. You want to get to the point where people are asking you, what the hell do I do? That shows your confidence, and it shows that you're not bullshitting. They know you know what you're doing. If you don't know, find somebody, but that's the bar. You need to be not the best, but not the least prepared person in the room. Let's set that as a bar to start for new people. And when you find a problem, clear it. Just like a weapons malfunction, you clear it, you fix it, and you go back to action. Here's how the compounding effect, doing this one habit a week, okay? One habit per week. But after 10 weeks, you build a system. After a year, fucking A, dude, you're proficient, okay? After a year, if you do this, you're pretty much ready, okay? You've built capability, you've built confidence. You get an extra cookie for dessert today, all right? After a few years, start a podcast. That's all I can say. Now, I would actually run your shit past someone and make sure you're not just crazy and think you know. But after a few years of prepping, you should be able to do a podcast just like this. You're not going to be as good looking or funny as me, but you can try. You're going to be calm when they're not. They're going to be looking at you like, holy shit, how is he so calm with all this shit going on? And short of being shot at, you're going to be able to handle pretty much anything because you practiced. You didn't practice. You didn't make it a dramatic situation. You just made it a consistent situation. So here's your takeaway. This is your big takeaway from this, all right? Preparedness is not a moment. It's a pattern. It's a quiet decision to do small things before they become big problems. You got to recognize them, fix them before it becomes a, oh shit. You're going to be turning a, well, look at that, into a holy freaking shit. No, you're going to fix it. It's going to be a, oh, look at that, to, well, that was quick. It's fixed. That made sense in my head. If it didn't make sense to you, well, no, tough shit. It's building a life where when things go wrong, you don't have to scramble. You've already got things under control. Before shit even got out of control, you got it under control. I mean, yes, and again, to all you doomsayers out there, earthquake, plate tectonics, rocks shooting up to your house, you can't fix that. You're just going to die. But the simple stuff you should be able to do. And if nothing ever happens, you spend a few minutes each week becoming more capable and confident. Slightly harder to kill. That's another big one. You are now slightly harder to kill because you can survive. Which, if we're being honest, that's a pretty good hobby. All right? Start small. Stay consistent. Try not to discover your flashlight doesn't work too late, during the apocalypse especially. And thank you for listening. Watch your six, freaks. Peace out.